Hello, nice to see you on the vlog again. So, we have been in some conversations around how we visualize our work. And I have this thing where if I can't see it, I can't really process it. Like if I can't see it drawn out, it's very difficult for me to understand things. And there's only so much I can get from reading an article or bullet pointed lists. And then I just have to draw things out. And so we're beginning to really look at that and also beginning to look at like how visuals can actually reflect our analysis around equity. How are our visuals somehow invitational of the world we're trying to create as well?
Yeah, and I think there are a couple points just to kind of highlight there, Tim. One is that you said if I can't see it, then that's how I learn. If I can't see it, it's not this. And I think that that's true for a lot of people. So actually, this is actually another point of access, right?
Yeah.
In terms, I think visuals can be another way of making the work accessible to different people, different learning styles. But we even talked about last year when we were using visuals so often with our team that was spread out across the world, that sometimes having icons or a visual language that they shared was actually really useful when English wasn't people's first language and we were doing
Yeah.
all of our talking in that. So it's
Right.
actually, I think it's the way your brain works. I think it's the way a lot of people's brain works, but I also think it also gives us a different access point in for different groups of people who may not share a verbal language, which I think is just invaluable.
I love that. And there is research out there around our ability to absorb highly complex circumstances, right? And that actually it's a lot easier for the human brain and heart to absorb something that is highly complex if it's visualized than if it's written down. Like actually the ability to visualize something increases the brain's capacity to understand complexity. And so in our world where we're often dealing with like multiple stakeholders, rapidly changing circumstances, shifting mandates, I mean, all of that is happening around our people. The ability then to visualize and visualize in an iterative way,
Yeah.
right? So it's not like you create one snapshot and you're sorted. It's actually your visuals need to continue to iterate over time, like, and which is why you need a visual language rather than just like lots of visual snapshots. So because it's actually your iconography that travels over time with you, right? Whereas the actual visual snapshots you take may become really different. So that's why we need to look at like not just visual capture, but visual language.
And of course, we're not like there's a whole field of graphic recording and visual design. We're not the first people to think about this in any way, to use it in our work. I think, however, what we're finding is there's some lack of depiction of different people in the work or different, there's kind of a generic person and what that's created and this kind of work often, not certainly not with everyone we work with, we have good folks who are pushing our own thinking in that, but it does in this moment also have special resonance as we're in conversation around how whiteness is the default,
Yeah.
right? How like generic means white,
Yeah.
right? And so that if that comes through our visuals, we're just talking generic people who are looking at a board, generic people who are going through a process. The default then is often to white. And that is something that needs to be interrogated. And actually, I would just say needs to be changed. And so that's some of what we're really, we've been in conversation for years with a organization called Brave Space, and they're moving this, right?
Yeah.
They're absolutely have been thinking about it for years and have shifted their practice. And we are beginning to think about how is it that we create our own
Right.
iconography that actually is reflective, that doesn't make whiteness the norm or the default, right? What
Right.
does that look like in our visuals?
Yeah, so incredibly inspired by Mo Drescher and Brave
Yes,
Space,
yes,
influenced by kind of like Claudia Lopez and Marsha Dunn, who've done some work with us, and we've
yeah,
also worked with Bigger Picture out of Denmark, are the people who've kind of like influenced how we might think about how we would generate visuals, you know.
yeah,
And the thing for me is I can't help myself, right? So I just have to start drawing, you know. So I start being like, okay, what's our arrows going to look like? And then if we're thinking about how to have diverse peoples, how do I start drawing them? And how do we then cluster those people so they begin to look like teams? And we have an icon for core team and strategy team and all of that kind of stuff. And so I've got this iPad now that I can draw things on. And so I was just like, I can't help myself. I just have to get started. And I feel like that's where it's got to be. It's got to be something that we initiate. and that is driven by us from within the outside and our team. But of course, you know, based upon my drawing, we're going to need help from the outside. We're going to need support to be able to develop and grow those into icons. But it truly needs to be something that we can own and draw, that we aren't dependent upon someone else for. This needs to be a language that anyone who works within the outside can ultimately change and iterate, but also use, like drag and drop that icon and very rapidly turn it around to a client and be like, here's a visual of the process. Here's a first draft of a roadmap. And those need to be things that we can actually turn around pretty quickly.
Well, and just as you were saying that, I think that that's absolutely true. So we can develop what we can develop. We will get help from our friends and colleagues who can impact us. We, as an outside, will work with them. And then as you were just talking to him, I'm like, and you know, there's no way when we get in the room with clients again, eventually someday, maybe, that they won't be impacting, right? I could just, I mean, I just like was like, oh, I could just see last year when we were with that organization where folks were from 16 countries, like they actually really got into the drawing. So how would they impact the icons? How would they want to see themselves depicted, right? So that I can see it being a real back and forth, because this is one of the ways it might look or sound subtle, but as we move into this particular space, I think it's going to be a huge place where we walk our talk around issues of equity and depiction and sharing power. And it just feels like it's an area that's really ripe for to get lots of thinking into how we visualize and then work with our clients then to iterate for what's right for them too. So I don't know if people saw, because it was a quick shot, but you had different skin tones, you have different hair textures. You can pull it up again.
Sure.
And again, just like, again, this is Tim sketching. We're just starting like different skin tones, different hair textures, different body shapes, beginning to see different types of clothing. Certainly, you know, there's more to do here. This is, you know, kind of a first, like, oh, let me just try some different, maybe you want to say, but I just want to say, like, we're just beginning to think through. And of course, when we, if and when we put facial features in, then those will shift too, right? That will be part of what we're doing. But I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so, like, you know, I've been kind of like, you know, because I like to like get things into really short sentences. It's like, it's got equitable, illustrative iconography. Like that's what we're looking at, right? And it's like, how do we do that? And that's not necessarily going to replace some of the like slick branded things we might produce, you know, that become embedded in reports and things like that. But what we do need is a way just to communicate visually in an ongoing way, right? That feels alive, that feels drawn, that feels human, especially in these online spaces. I feel like the stroke of a pen feels completely different than a digital line.
Yeah.
And I feel like those, there has to be that feeling embedded in the art for me, because so much of what we're doing is remote, you know?
Right.
And so I'm really, I think there is something about this that has to feel illustrated to me. It has to feel drawn. It has to feel hand touched, you know, and that's not to replace kind of like graphically designed digital media that we may work with.
Yeah.
But this is a key part of like just how we communicate in general. So early stages, thinking about it, beginning to put it together in a way that relies on our own steam, on our own drive, rather than someone else doing it for us. And I think that's the big shift for us at the moment.
Yep. I'm up for it. Sounds fun.
Me too.
Let's do it.
Take care, friends. Let us know if you're doing it as well.
Yeah.
Send pictures.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
That'd be cool. All right. Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye.